On count one, the racketeering conspiracy charge, Sean Combs has been found not guilty of racketeering conspiracy, perhaps the most complicated charge for the jury to understand. The count one had provided for a number of predicate acts, but the jury does not have to get into that because they have found Sean Combs not guilty of leading a criminal enterprise, not guilty of racketeering conspiracy. They will now move to the other four counts, two of them on sex trafficking and on and we have not guilty now on count two, which was sex trafficking of Cassandra Ventura. Sean Combs has been found not guilty of sex trafficking when it comes to his former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura. There was a real debate that the jury heard over the course of the last 2 months about consent and coercion and the complications of deciding when an 11-year relationship between Combs and Cassie Ventura may have become a criminal one. And the jury decided it was not criminal sex trafficking when Sean Combs committed what his attorneys freely admitted was domestic abuse, as you saw in that video. He has been found not guilty now on racketeering conspiracy, not guilty on sex trafficking of Cassie Ventura. He has been found guilty on count three, transportation for the purposes of prostitution. He has also been found guilty on count five, transportation for the purposes of prostitution. These charges carry a maximum penalty of up to 10 years in prison, so we do have a split verdict. Sean Combs has been found not guilty of racketeering conspiracy, not guilty of sex trafficking Cassandra Ventura, but he has been found guilty on 2 counts of transportation for the purposes of prostitution. And we're waiting for one more count, the sex trafficking of Jane. And just now the jury has decided that Sean Combs is not guilty of sex trafficking his former girlfriend who testified under the pseudonym Jane. So the jury has now believed that the relationships that Sean Combs had with his former girlfriends, Cassie Ventura and a woman who testified under the pseudonym Jane, were not criminal, did not involve sex trafficking.
And we can stop it right there. Let's stop pretending this was ever even about justice. This was a hit job. We all know it, plain and simple. It was a hit job. The one thing we all saw with our own eyes was Puffy beating the hell out of Cassie in a hotel hallway wasn't even prosecutable. Why? Because the statute of limitations had already expired. That's the one crime everybody agrees actually happened. And yet, it's the only thing the system couldn't even touch. So instead, the government launched a full-scale assault with a RICO indictment, sex trafficking charges, and try to paint Puffy as the kingpin of some underground sex empire. They had no insider testimony, no wiretaps. Where was the paper trail? There were none, showing any sort of criminal hierarchy. The disturbing stories from women who were living in mansions, that's what we heard. Getting flown out, compensated heavily for their silence and participation. That's not sex trafficking. That's a long-term freak-off contract. Now, let me break something down that most of you don't understand. RICO has a 5-year statute of limitations, but it doesn't start from the first crime. It starts from the last act of the so-called enterprise. So the feds tried to frame all of Puffy's wild behavior as part of one ongoing criminal enterprise that would stretch into 2019 or beyond. Why? Because that way they can drag in older incidents like the 2016 assault on Cassie and claim they were still fair game under RICO. But here's the thing. The jury didn't buy it, as we can see. They didn't believe Diddy was running a criminal organization. They didn't believe these women were victims. And without the RICO framework, all those old allegations were legally dead. So what did stick? 2 charges under the Mann Act. He was convicted for transporting 2 women across state lines for the purpose of prostitution. That's it. Let that sink in. The entire case boiled down to this. Diddy flew out women, Cassie and Jane, knowing damn well they were coming for sex. And they were getting perks, gifts, or money in exchange. That is prostitution by federal definition. So you can't call these women victims and legally define them as prostitutes in the same breath. You don't get flown out first class, live rent-free in a penthouse, shop with the black card, and go to private islands, and then return around 10 years later and claim you were traumatized. And if this is the new legal standard, then let's be consistent. Every politician who's flown out an escort, guilty. Every rapper who paid a woman to come through for the weekend, guilty. Every average dude who cash apps a girl for a flight and hotel with strings attached, guilty. But they're not prosecuting those men because this isn't about justice. It's about optics. It's about finding someone famous enough and disposable enough to crucify publicly. In my opinion, Diddy didn't get justice. He got targeted. He got offered up as a sacrifice to the system that couldn't charge him for the one thing we all saw on video. So they built a Frankenstein case around sex, money, and revenge and called it trafficking. This case wasn't about the law. It was about headlines. The women were financially motivated, emotionally bitter, and looking for a payout. They weren't forced. They weren't kidnapped. They signed up, played the game, and got mad when the lifestyle ended. And if you're a man, honestly, watching this, understand something very clear. These people don't need solid evidence anymore. They don't need current crimes. All they need is a narrative, a camera, and the right target, period. Let this be a lesson. Learn from it. And I'll see you guys on the next one.